Now, the world drinks roughly the equivalent of 6.1 litres of pure alcohol per person. The biggest boozers per year are mostly found in Europe and the former Soviet states. Why do I tell you this? Because later in the programme, we'll talk about marketing one of the globe's great Scotch whisky brands. Also, can you teach kids to be creative, and how one brand took the high road in the Lance Armstrong doping scandal. Welcome to Mags on Media. Well, glory and accolade first. We'll start with the digital advertising sector and the annual Bookmarks Awards. What do the experts say? Well, they say this: if your brand isn't playing in the digital space, it really is heading south. We've got two digital heavies with us. Rob Stokes runs Quirk eMarketing. He talks to us from Cape Town today. And Pete Case is the MD of Gloo, the big winning agency this year. Pete, I'm going to start with you. Rob, to you in just a moment. Congratulations first on your success. Is this a win for technology as far as you're concerned, or for client vision as far as they're concerned?
Good question. I don't think it's either of those. I think it's as simple as that. For us, it's actually a win in terms of our philosophy, which is actually about creativity. And I think what's fantastic about Bookmarks is that Bookmarks is driven by data. So it's all about finding the data to support the effectivity of your work, the effectiveness of your work. You know, whether you've driven more people in store, physical footprint in store or online. And it's fantastic for us to have kind of been using the creative tools that we have at Gloo to create measurable change in the mind of the consumer and also for our brand. So I think it's a champion this year for creativity.
All right, let's talk about one of the winning categories in BMW. It was for the 3 Series and also for efficient dynamics. The brand itself, how has its approach changed to digital, and how have you addressed that?
Right, I think along with a variety of brands that we work with, BMW own an innovation pillar in terms of their brand, so they see digital as a very important part of their marketing mix. And we've certainly started embracing lots of different areas of digital, not just online advertising, but viral marketing, building small little niche kind of campaigns. So BMW is certainly spending more and more year on year investing in the digital space, as are a lot of our other brands like F&B, other big winners this year at the awards.
I want to talk to you about F&B in just a moment, but Rob Stokes in Cape Town, we trust you haven't nodded off. Pete mentioned that it's all about data, but when you judge stuff in the bookmarks, is it simply about click-throughs and likes, or is it a lot more than that? What are you actually looking for?
Look, at the end of the day, the ideal measure is return on investment. What is the business benefit that the client has derived from this piece of work? It's not always easy to get down to a hard tack revenue number. So in certain cases, you are looking at click-throughs. Sometimes you're looking at engagement levels on a Facebook or a Twitter. Really, whatever measure takes you as close to that ultimate business bottom line as you can be. And it does make judging the awards quite difficult because you're comparing 2 different brands, for example, with 2 different campaigns, 2 different set of metrics, and you kind of have to determine, comparing an apple and a pear, which one has delivered the superior performance. It is tricky, but I think it's important.
But surely if a brand is going, Rob Stokes, into the space, they are looking for real and tangible ROI, that the likes are no longer important, that the presence on the Facebook page is no longer important. Whatever they're doing has got to translate at some point into real unit sales.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But if you look at, for example, a brand like BMW, they're not, at least in the foreseeable future, going to start selling cars online. When a transaction happens online, we can absolutely tie it back to, you know, where did this visitor come from, what did they buy, what's the direct monetary return on investment. But it's quite challenging to tie, for example, a microsite or Facebook campaign down to the dealer network and the sale of a motor vehicle. And so in that case, you do tend to use, call them proxy variables, that at least give the judge an indication of, especially in their experience, has this campaign been a success or hasn't it been? But always try and get as close to the bottom line as one can.
Pete?
Yeah, just to jump in there on BMW, I think there's a couple of ways they're using it very effectively. One is to drive not just direct sales, but to drive people into the showrooms to test drive. We can measure that drive, and then how many of those people actually end up purchasing. So we can actually measure the amount of people that actually buy vehicles after seeing a piece of online advertising. We also know from research that the majority of people are doing a lot of research beforehand, online, before it affects their purchase. The other area is that in the showroom we're also putting in digital technology to help that sale. Instead of printed brochures, a lot of it's gone electronic. So it's not just in the marketing space, but it's actually also in the kind of tool space that we're helping our clients connect with the consumer and make a measurable difference.
Do you feel creatively restrained by the medium sometimes?
Not at all. But I think Clover's a great example.
Yeah.
It won gold at Luries, which celebrates creativity and innovation, and it wins some great honours at Bookmarks this year. And really the effectiveness through that amazing world that I think we created with Joe Public has something very tangible and measurable about it, in terms of a 30-second TV ad which links to this piece where we're measuring audiences spending over 11 minutes discovering the brand intrinsics around milk and what Clover does. So I think it's a really great example of where a really highly creative piece of work created large change for the brand.
But you can't have an overemphasis on creativity, because still there's got to be a practical functionality, surely. Got to find the balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's why it's important to have different award shows awarding different things. Luries awards creativity and effectiveness, but in the opposite way. So creativity and innovation first, relevance to the brand, then effectiveness. Whereas Bookmarks flips it on its head and says effectiveness first. It needs to be creative, but it's not the highest thing it's rewarding.
Give me a quick view on FNB winning for social media. What specifically has the brand been doing in that space?
Well, I mean, I think FNB has become pretty famous in the social media kind of world. I think it's not, though, just in isolation. They've tied social media into everything that they do. And I think, again, that's the big shift with a brand like FNB that understands good integration. It's not just about building a Facebook page. It's about how you use that touch point to connect with everything else, from how people report on bad service, how they correct bad service in a branch, to actually using it as a campaign space. So they've really increased a lot of numbers in terms of the people that engage on that space, but they've also answered a lot of issues and problems using that space with the consumer.
Rob Stokes, I need a fairly brief answer. Unfortunately, time is against us. Just in conclusion, the broader digital medium that we've been talking about today, is it aimed specifically, as we think it is, at the under 30s, or should people like me be getting a little bit more excited about this?
You absolutely should be getting more excited, Jeremy. And I can say across our clients, which cover myriad industries, our average target is over the age of 30. It tends to be where the spending power is. And the fastest growing segment in social media is above 50, albeit off a low base. But look, I can tell you my mother's a vociferous user of Facebook and has been influenced by campaigns on that platform. So it's certainly not just for the youngsters.
Don't you dare put me in the same age category as your mother, Rob Stokes, but I appreciate the insight.
She's a beautiful young lady, Jeremy.
CEO of Quirk eMarketing for us in Cape Town, Pete Case, MD of Gloo. Thank you very much for joining us. Now here's the question. Are you more disposed to a brand that has a strong digital presence, as we've been talking about? The conversation is already underway on Facebook. And coming up on the programme, the Lance Armstrong debacle and how one brand took the gap and led the peloton.